to expand the scope of electric vehicles. And in this background, we will discuss the challenges that we are facing in the production of electric vehicles. We are moving on to the next article. Look at this article. It talks about the government's recent plans to expand the scope of electric vehicles. And in this background, we will discuss the challenges that we are facing in the production of electric vehicles, its benefits and its limitations. Let's begin this article. The government plans to expand its electric vehicle policy, which was announced in March. The expanded policy will have a retrospective effect, which means it will benefit those who have already invested, but previously, only those who setting up local facilities within 3 years of approval were eligible for incentives. The revised policy aims to encourage global players to localize production and invest in the domestic ecosystem. However, the formal announcement of the revised policy is expected in August. Now we are going to discuss what are the challenges that we are facing in production of electric vehicles. Producing electric vehicles in India faces several significant challenges. One of the primary obstacles is the lack of robust manufacturing ecosystem. Unlike traditional vehicles, electric vehicles require specialized components such as batteries, electric motors, and advanced electronics. India currently imports many of these key components, which increases cost and dependency on other countries. To establish a strong electric vehicle industry, India needs to develop a local supply chain and invest in manufacturing capabilities. Another challenge is the high cost of electric vehicle production. Batteries, which are the most expensive part of an electric vehicle, significantly contribute to the overall cost. Despite recent advances in battery technology and reduction in cost, EVs are still generally more expensive than their internal combustion engine counterparts. This high cost can be deterrent for consumers, especially in price-sensitive market like India. To address this issue, the government and private sector need to invest in research and development to make batteries more affordable and efficient. Next, infrastructure is the another critical challenge. Electric vehicles require a network of charging stations, and India currently lacks sufficient charging infrastructure. Without easy access to charging points, potential electric vehicle buyers may hesitate to switch from traditional vehicles. Expanding the charging network across urban and rural area is essential to support the growing number of electric vehicles and alleviate concerns about range anxiety. Last, there is the issue of public awareness and acceptance. Many consumers are still unfamiliar with the electric vehicle technology and its benefits. Misconceptions about the reliability, performance, and maintenance of electric vehicles can hinder their adoption. Public education campaigns and incentives to encourage electric vehicle purchases can help increase awareness and acceptance among consumers. Addressing these challenges requires coordinated effort from government, industry, and other stakeholders. By building a strong manufacturing ecosystem, reducing production costs, expanding infrastructure, and increasing public awareness, India can overcome these obstacles and become a leader in electric vehicle market. Now we will see what are the benefits of electric vehicles in India. Electric vehicles offers numerous benefits. One of the most significant advantages is environmental. Electric vehicles produce zero tailpipe emissions, reducing air pollution in cities and helping combat climate change. Given India's high levels of pollution in urban areas, widespread of adoption of electric vehicles can contribute to clear air and improved public health. Another benefit is a potential for cost savings. Although the initial purchase price of an electric vehicle can be higher than the traditional vehicle price, but the running costs are significantly lower. Electric vehicles have fewer moving parts, which means less maintenance and lower repair costs. Additionally, the cost of electricity for charging is generally cheaper than fuel, leading to a long-term savings for consumers. The next benefit, electric vehicles also helps in reducing our dependence on imported oil. India imports a significant portion of its oil, making it vulnerable to fluctuations in global oil prices and supply disruptions. By transitioning to electric vehicles, India can reduce its oil imports, improve energy security, and support the use of domestically produced electricity, including renewable energy sources like solar and wind. Last, the growth of electric vehicle industry can boost the economy by creating new jobs and industries. Developing a local manufacturing ecosystem will require skilled labor, innovation, and investment, providing opportunities for economic growth and development. Moving forward, now let us discuss what are the limitations of electric vehicles. Despite their benefits, electric vehicles have several limitations that need to be addressed. One major limitation is the current lack of charging infrastructure. Without an extensive network of charging stations, electric vehicle owners may face difficulties in charging their vehicles, especially on long trips. Expanding the charging infrastructure is crucial to support the increasing number of electric vehicles on the road. Another limitation is the high initial cost of electric vehicles. While running costs are lower, the upfront price can be a barrier for many consumers. This is primarily due to the cost of batteries, which remains expensive despite recent price reductions. To make electric vehicles more accessible, there needs to be focus on reducing battery cost and offering financial incentives to buyers. The limited range of electric vehicles compared to traditional vehicle is also a concern. Although newer models have improved range, many consumers still worry about running out of charge during their journeys, known as range anxiety. Advances in battery technology and the development of fast charging solutions are necessary to alleviate these concerns. Additionally, there are challenges related to battery disposal and recycling. As the number of electric vehicles increases, so will the number of used batteries that need to be properly disposed or recycled. Developing sustainable methods for battery recycling and disposal is essential to prevent environmental harm and make the electric vehicle industry more sustainable. Finally, the current lack of consumer awareness and acceptance of electric vehicles can hinder their adoption. Many people are not fully informed about the benefits and practicalities of owning an electric vehicle. Public education campaigns and incentives can help increase awareness and encourage more people to consider switching to electric vehicles. In this discussion, we have seen about the challenges in production of electric vehicles, benefits and limitations, and with this, we are moving on to the next article. So aspirants, take a look at this article. It talks about weight loss is among the best routes to diabetes remission. With this, the world organizations are coming with a new
11th July 2024. Displayed here are the list of cases. Quixote Holohan case in 1990. Security. Most gig workers lack by gig workers. They often face prelims exam. So what is gig economy? It refers to this discussion and move to the next topic. Look at this article. This article talks about gig economy and let us discuss about it for prelims exam. So what is gig economy? It refers to a labor market characterized by short-term contracts or freelance work as opposed to permanent jobs. It involves independent workers engaging in temporary flexible jobs often facilitated by digital platforms such as ride sharing, food delivery, freelance services. Now let us understand the challenges faced by gig workers. They often face instability with no guarantees of consistent income. According to survey by Economic Times, 70% of gig workers reported job insecurity. Most gig workers lack access to benefits like health insurance, retirement savings, and paid leave. Niti Aayog report on India's booming gig and platform economy highlighted that 75% of gig workers did not have any social security coverage. The earnings can be unpredictable and often insufficient. Many such workers, especially in sectors like delivery and ride sharing, face health and safety risk without adequate protection or compensation. There is often a gap between skill and job requirement. The Niti Aayog report also noted that 68% of gig workers lacked access to training and upskilling opportunities. Now moving ahead, let us see some initiatives taken by government to promote gig economy in India. The Code on Social Security 2020 contains a separate section on gig economy and imposes obligation on gig employers to contribute to Social Security Fund to be handled by government-led board. The Code on Wages 2019 provides for universal minimum wage and floor wage across organized and unorganized sectors. The Rajasthan Assembly also passed a bill aimed at extending social security benefits to gig workers. So this is all regarding this discussion. Now we have come to the prelims practice questions. The Rajasthan Assembly also passed a bill aimed at extending social security benefits to gig workers. So
A very good evening, aspirants. Welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 10th July 20. Page article. It talks about a new finding of a research July 2024. Displayed here are the These are certain facts that you have to remember about biomining from the prelims perspective. Just make a note of it and revise it. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this news article. This news article talks about RBI's Financial Inclusion Index. The March 2024 Financial Inclusion Index recorded a growth in the value than March 2023 from 60.1 to 64.2. That is why RBI's Financial Inclusion Index is in news. So let us revise about what is this FII from the prelims perspective. As I said earlier, the Financial Inclusion Index is released by RBI with the aim to assess the financial inclusion in the country. So what is financial inclusion? Financial inclusion means ensuring access to adequate and timely financial services to every section in the economy, including people from socially and economically vulnerable. This financial inclusion is considered as a direct indicator of development because through financial inclusion we can achieve 6 SDG goals. You can see that in the image given here. Remember, the value of the Financial Inclusion Index ranges from 0 to 100. Here 0 means low financial inclusion while 100 means high financial inclusion. To prepare this index, the RBI considers 97 indicators in which access, usage and quality are 3 broad parameters. Remember these. Talking about the application or the significance of the index. See, firstly, it helps in policy making. As we said, FII is an indicator of development. It can be used for preparation of government schemes. Secondly, it strengthens India's role towards achieving sustainable development goals. Thirdly, it aids in inclusive development. This will be focusing more on women and other social and economically vulnerable people. Now, we shall see the steps taken to ensure financial inclusion in India. Firstly, digitalization. This will ensure timely delivery of financial benefits to every region of India, including the remote area. For example, the Digital India Mission. Secondly, government schemes like Jan Dhan Yojana to promote the bank account for everyone. Then PM Jan Arogya Yojana, world's largest health insurance scheme. PM Fasal Bima Yojana, insurance for crops, and etc. Thirdly, identity-based payment or Aadhaar payment. These type of payment will reduce the leakages and ensure payment to the right person. So these are all facts that you have to remember about Financial Inclusion Index. Remember, it is released by RBI annually. RBI considers 97 indicators in which access, usage and quality are three broad parameters. You can use it in your mains answer writing as a point as well. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Look at this opinion page article. You might have recently seen in news that Jake Sullivan, the US National Security Advisor, is visiting India and engaging in bilateral discussions. This article is written in the back. Making turbofan engines for the Tejas Mark paper 3. Let me read out the question for you. Discuss the through joint projects and technology sharing. So by reinforced by ICET. This contribute to the stability of framework for cooperation. On to the next news article discussion. Look at this article. This article talks about how the informal sector of the nation has been affected due to the macroeconomic shock since 2016 in the form of demonetization, introduction of GST and outbreak of COVID-19. So without further ado, let us see what is an informal sector. According to International Labour Bureau, informal sector is the part of the economy where all the economic activities of workers and economic unit that are in law or in practice not covered or insufficiently covered by formal arrangements. In 2023, 80% of India's workforce was employed in the informal sector. There are three types of workers in informal sector. Firstly, informal workers. They are hired by employers to finish a part or for the whole production process. Secondly, subcontracted workers. They are hired for a part of the production. This will cut the production cost for the employer. Then freelancer. These are individual or group of workers who mostly rely on their skill and knowledge. These informal workers faces many challenges. Let us see them one by one. First is invisibility. Most of the business entities do not have information or data about the workers. This makes them invisible and prevent their access to protection of law and social security schemes. Secondly, low wages. According to ILO, 60% of the informal workers are not getting their minimum wage. Thirdly, the workers does not have a common platform to organize and stand for the demand. Finally, they work in poor working condition, which makes them exposed to high risk of health problems and even death. For example, workers in hazardous industries like cement and chemical industries. According to India Rating and Research, the estimated loss of the informal sector is 4.3% of 2022 to 23 GDP or 11.3 lakh crore rupees. This study also found that between 2016 to 17 and 2022 to 23, around 63 lakh informal enterprises were shut down and the job loss is estimated at 1 crore. This shows how the informal sector has been affected by macroeconomic shock since 2016. This is what the article tries to convey to us. So these learned points, now let us move on to the next part of the news article discussion, which is the preliminary practice question discussion. Look at this question. Here 3 schemes are given and you have to find how many of the schemes benefit informal workers. See, the correct answer here is option C, all the 3. MNREGA provides 100-day job, whereas eShram Portal is an open database for the informal workers to solve the problem of invisibility. Then the Pradhan Mantri E-Rojgar Protsahan Yojana provides incentives for creating of new jobs and also working for formalization of informal sector. Then look at this question. Which of the following is a joint defense exercise conducted regularly between India and United States? The correct answer is option C, exercise Malabar. Then look at this question. You have to find which of the following statements about nanoparticles is true. Here the correct answer is option D. Nanoparticles have a high surface area to volume ratio. Look at this question about biomining. 4 options are given and you have to find which of them can be used for biomining. The correct answer is option D, all of the above. All plant, fungi, bacteria and archaea all can be used for biomining. Finally, look at this question about Financial Inclusion Index. 2 statements are given and you have to find which of the statements given above is or are correct. First statement says Financial Inclusion Index was developed in 2021 with 2019 as the base year.
Hello friends, welcome to Shankar IAS Academy Daily Newspaper Analysis. Today's date is 9/7/2024. Displayed here are the list of articles that we are about to discuss today. So without much delay, let's get started. Look at this article. It talks about the high out-of-pocket expenditure on health for the citizens of India. The main reason behind this is the low public health spending in India. This is the crux of this article given here. Let us understand some of the important points given in this article from our main answer writing discussion. Let me read out the questions for you. Access to affordable, quality healthcare is still a dream in many pockets of India. Discuss. This question can be asked in UPSC mains in GS paper 2. The only keyword in this question is discuss. See, when discuss is given in your question, it should be noted that you have to give various perspectives of that matter. So in the first part, you have to write about the reasons for the inaccessibility to the quality healthcare services in India. And in the second part, you can suggest some measures to overcome these challenges. This is how we are going to address this particular question. Now, starting with the introduction, you can write as follows. With a large and a diversified population, India faces persistent obstacles to health equity, including notable differences in the healthcare outcomes and access. According to the Lancet Medical Journal Global Burden of Disease Study, India ranks 145th among the 195 countries surveyed. This means that even though access to healthcare has been improved over the past 20 years, there is still much work to be done in both rural and urban areas. Some of the issues that reasons for inaccessibility to the quality healthcare services in India are as follows. This is the way you can move on to the first part of the answer. Here you can write that. Firstly, low healthcare spending in India. India's public healthcare spending is around 1.35% of GDP, far below the recommended 2.5%. This leads to inadequate infrastructure, shortage of medical professionals, and insufficient resources in the public healthcare facilities. According to the National Health Profile, India has only 0.9 beds per 1,000 population, and out of which only 30% are in rural areas. Secondly, high out-of-pocket spending. See, India has a shortage of hospitals, particularly in rural areas, and many existing healthcare facilities lack basic equipments and resources. An estimated 60 to 80 million households have fallen below poverty line due to medical expenses. Thirdly, the geographical disparities. There is a stark contrast in the healthcare access and quality between the urban and rural areas. Rural areas often lack basic healthcare facilities, qualified medical personnel, and essential medicine, forcing the residents to travel for a long distance for treatment. Fourthly, quality of the care. Even where health services are available, the quality of the care can be substandard. This includes outdated medical equipments, poorly maintained facilities, and inadequate training for the healthcare workers. Then there are underdeveloped states. See, the states like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, and Assam lag behind in terms of healthcare infrastructure and services. These states require targeted interventions to bridge the gap with more developed regions. Then the rise in the non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and cancer requires a shift from episodic to the continuous care. The current healthcare system is not adequately equipped to handle the long-term management of non-communicable disease, that is NCDs. Finally, there is a gap in doctor-to-patient ratio. One of the most critical concerns is the gap in the doctor-to-patient ratio. According to the Indian Journal of Public Health Care in India, India needs about 20 lakh doctors by 2030. However, currently a doctor in the government hospital attends about 11,000 patients, which is far more than what WHO has recommended, that is 1:1,000. You can write these points in the first part of your body. Now moving on to the second part, here you can write that. Firstly, there is a need for investing in the construction of new healthcare facilities and upgrading the existing ones, as well as increasing the funding for healthcare services and medical research. Also, there is a need for increasing the number of healthcare workers. It includes increasing the number of medical schools and training programs, as well as offering financial incentives to encourage healthcare professionals to work in underserved areas. Secondly, there is a need for time-bound implementation of targeted programs to increase access to the healthcare services for the people living in poverty, mainly for the lower caste and especially women's, as well as providing education and information about the healthcare services to these communities. There is also a need for enforcing regulation, implementing quality control measures, increasing transparency, and conducting audits of healthcare programs. Thirdly, we should address the root cause of health inequality. For this, the healthcare system should be work in coordination with other sectors such as education, housing, and sanitation to address the social determinants of health and reduce the overall health inequalities. Fourthly, investing in R&D, that is research and development, by additional tax deduction to further support greater investment in new drug developments and reducing GST on the life-saving and essential drugs is necessary. Finally, there is a need to recognize that health of the people is closely connected to health of animals and our shared environment, and collective health initiatives covering healthy atmosphere, healthy animals, and healthy humans are the need of the hour. You can write these points in the second part of the answer. Now, moving on to the conclusion part. For India to achieve its aspiration of becoming a developed country by 2047, we need to innovative technology solutions for India's healthcare requirements and the government's increased focus on healthcare sector. The next few years are important to tackle its long-standing healthcare issues and at the same time adapt to meet the ever-evolving healthcare needs of its citizens. That's all about this topic. With this, let's move on to the next topic for the discussion. Look at this article. Recently, Economic Offences Wing of Chhattisgarh has registered FIR against 2 IAS officers and the state officials in a coal levies scam. With this background, we are going to discuss the basics about coal, its types and other features, and also about rat hole mining from prelims point of view. First, we will see some basics about coal. Coal is a fossil fuel formed from the fossils of plants and animals, buried under the soil for millions of years under great pressure and temperature. On the basis of depth, the carbon content of the coal can be classified into 4 types. They are peat, lignite, bituminous and anthracite. Among these 4, peat is the least quality while anthracite is the highest quality because it has high carbon content and high calorific value. Here note that calorific value is the amount of energy that can be produced from a unit of coal. At present, coal accounts of about 55% of the energy production of the country. Moving forward, we are going to see major locations related to coal production. According to the Ministry of Coal, the major coal producing states in India are Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra and West Bengal. Among these states, Jharkhand has the largest coal reserves that accounts about 83.15 billion tons. In the world, China is the largest coal producer. Let's now see about rat hole mining. See, it refers to extraction of coal from narrow and horizontal seams. The practice of rat hole mining is highly prevalent in northeast India because in the hilly region the coal seams are thin and therefore building a huge coal mine will not be profitable. In 2014, the National Green Tribunal banned the rat hole mining, citing that it is dangerous to the miners and also cause several environmental problems. So with this article, we have covered about basics of coal in a holistic manner. With this, we have come to the end of this article. Let us now move on to discuss about HPV vaccine in our next discussion. This article talks about the vaccine for human papilloma virus and its impacts on the public health. So first, we shall know about what is HPV and then we shall see about the HPV vaccine. Know that the cervical cancer develops in a woman's cervix. The cervix is the entrance of the uterus from vagina. Almost all the cervical cancer cases, that is almost 99% of the cases, are linked to the infection with the high-risk human papilloma virus, that is HPV. Know that HPV is a common sexually transmitted infection. Almost all sexually active people will be infected at some point of time in their life with HPV virus, usually without symptoms. Our body's immune system fights off the HPV most of the time, but if they persist for a long period of time, they lead to the development of cervical cancer. HPV is a necessary cause of cervical cancer, but it is not sufficient cause. This means other cofactors are necessary for the progression from a cervical HPV infection to a cancer. For example, long-term use of hormonal contraceptives, high parity, that is, parity is the number of pregnancies a female has carried in the past 20 weeks, early initiation of sexual activity, multiple sex partners, tobacco smoking, and co-infection with HIV are identified as established cofactors. These cofactors along with HPV infection can lead to HPV-caused cervical cancer. Moving forward, let us see about some symptoms. As I said earlier, early stage of cervical cancer generally produces no signs or symptoms. Signs and symptoms of more advanced cervical cancer include vaginal bleeding, watery or bloody vaginal discharge, pelvic pain or pain during intercourse. Now, talking about the cure for the disease. See, we are very concerned about cervical cancer because cervical cancer is the 4th most common cancer in women globally. In India, cervical cancer is the 2nd most common cancer in women. India contributes the largest share of global cervical cancer burden. According to a study published in The Lancet, India accounted for nearly 1 in every 4 deaths globally due to cervical cancer. Surprisingly, the cervical cancer is preventable and treatable if detected early. You can reduce your risk of developing cervical cancer by having screening test and receiving a vaccine that protects against HPV infection. Cervavac is the India's first indigenously developed HPV vaccine. The vaccine is based on VLP, that is virus-like particles, similar to hepatitis B vaccination, and it gives protection by producing antibodies against HPV virus L1 protein. See, these VLP have the same outer L1 protein coat as HPV, but they do not contain any genetic material. The vaccine uses these VLP as an antigen to induce a strong protective immune response. If an exposure occurs, the vaccinated person's antibodies against L1 protein will coat the virus and prevent it from releasing its genetic material. This is actually how the vaccine works. Remember, the vaccine should be given in 2 dosages for those in 19 to 14 years old and 3 dosages for those in 15 to 26 years old. So that's all about this article. With this, let us move on to our next topic for our discussion. Look at this article. It is about the serial killing in Noida. Recently, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the plea from CBI. With this background, we shall begin with the discussion about CBI from the prelims point of view. CBI is a non-statutory and a non-constitutional body established to investigate corruption and serious crimes. First, we shall look into the origin of CBI. The origin of CBI can be traced back to World War II. During the war, Government of India set a special police establishment to investigate corruption in the war and the supply department. Later, in 1946, Delhi Special Police Act transferred the function of Special Police Establishment to the Home Department. Later, in 1963, the present Central Bureau of Investigation was actually formed through a resolution passed by Home Ministry. Now, the CBI is working under Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension. Now, we shall see about the composition of CBI in brief. The composition of CBI is the director appointed by the 3-member committee consisting of Prime Minister, Opposition Leader and Chief Justice of India. And the appointment is based on the Lokpal and Lokayuta Act of 2013, which actually amended the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946. In 2014, followed by the amendment to the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, it has been recognized that if there is no opposition leader, then the leader of single largest party will be in the committee instead of the opposition leader. Moving forward, let us see about the jurisdictions of CBI. Mostly, the CBI investigates into the cases related to economic crimes committed by the officials of central government, and if that offences affects the finance of central government. But it will also take up serious cases such as murder when a state government asks or a high court or a supreme court directs the CBI to investigate into it. The jurisdiction of CBI can be extended only to the state when the state gives their consent. See, there are two types of state consents. First one is general consent. Here the CBI can investigate all the cases within the border of the state. The second one is case-specific consent. Here the CBI can investigate only that particular case. Here it is to be noted that recently many states has withdrawn the general consent, citing the misuse of central agencies for political gain. With this, we will look into the difference between CBI and NIA. National Investigation Agency was established in 2008, followed by the Mumbai terror attack. This agency investigates the terror activities and it is constituted under NIA Act of 2008. One of the major differences between CBI and NIA is that the NIA comes under Ministry of Home Affairs, whereas CBI is under Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension. The CBI investigates mainly into the specific cases mostly related to corruption, while NIA investigates into the cases that fall under the radar of scheduled offences under NIA Act of 2008. And one more important thing to note here is the motto of CBI is industry, impartiality and integrity. The agency plays very important role in upholding constitutional values by ensuring order and restoring the truth. So with this, let us move on to our next topic for the discussion. Look at this article. Recently, the Supreme Court emphasized preventing stigmatization and discrimination against persons with disabilities, criticizing the media for perpetuating harmful stereotypes. Chief Justice Chandrachud highlighted the negative portrayal of disabilities in films, urging a shift from the outdated medical model to a social model that understands disabilities better. The judgment calls for accurate, inclusive representation in media, discouraged derogatory terms, and recommended involving persons with disabilities in decision-making process. With this backdrop, let us see Rights of People with Disabilities Act in India, 2016. Let's first look at the reservation provisions. The Rights of People with Disabilities Act 2016 ensures various rights and benefits for the people with disability. One of the significant provision is the reservation in the government jobs and educational institution. The Act mandates a 4% reservation in government jobs for physically disabled, extended to specific categories of disabilities. Additionally, the Act ensures 5% reservation in higher education institutions. These provisions aim to provide accessibility and opportunities for physically disabled